you have family that is coming. So it looks like we are going to get started. And so those of you who are joining us just now, we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get themselves settled, get your water. We were just talking a little bit about Zoom and how people are more forgiving during these times, that you all have been using Zoom in different ways and may not in the past have used technology like this. So we want everybody to get comfortable so that we can have a good, enjoyable conversation today. You know, I've done this ADAC Getting Down to Business last year, which was in person. And so it's going to be a little bit different today, but we feel we've got such a dynamic group here that the conversation is going to be nice and lively and you're all going to get something out of it. So today we're doing Looking Through a New Lens to Grow Your Business. And as I said, I'm grateful for ADAC for continuing to have such great programming. That today we've got Jim Thompson, Kravit, and Made Goods are the sponsors of today's program. And just so you all know, if you are in the Atlanta area, the ADAC is open, they're COVID safe, they are ready and welcoming to have you there. If you have any questions, feel free to either check in with ADAC themselves or call any of your respective showrooms. So, you know, little housekeeping here at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So on your screen, there's a Q&A button. So feel free, if you have questions, to put them down and we will do our best to answer them. And if you have anything in particular for Lori and Eric, they are happy to answer things individually or afterwards if you'd like to connect with them about their businesses. So you guys ready to get started? Eric and Lori. So Lori is a textile and product designer, Lori Weitzner Design, and she has many different facets to her business. So I'm going to have both, and Eric Chang is a partner in Hellman Chang, a furniture company who is, I think what's your born in Brooklyn and grown in Georgia. So he's got some interesting things to share as well about his business. So what I thought we would do is have each of them talk just a little teeny bit before we start in with our questions today to tell you about their businesses so that you have an understanding of who they are and what they're all about. So Lori, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. Well, I've been in designing for a long time, and I started out as a textile designer and it just expanded into many other kinds of products, mostly for the trade. I was a fine artist, painter, wanted to be a painter, and then my professor at university asked what I was going to do to make a living. And when I said I was going to be a painter, he said, no, you're not going to make a living as that, you should be a textile designer. And that was the first time I understood what that was and what that meant. And I've never looked back all these years later, because everything I do, I sort of start with pattern and color. And yeah, so I have a line called Weitzner, which is fabric and wall covering. And then I do rugs and dinnerware and even cards and passementerie for Samuel & Sons and all kinds of products. And I have a studio, I'm here now in Chelsea, New York. I have some pictures we can see later of what it's like, but it's a kind of creative tank. And I make sure that all of us are creating in an environment where we're not bogged down with all the other stuff, the customer service and the warehousing. It's sort of our little bit of a sanctuary here in New York City. I call it the White Box Sanctuary. And that's sort of just a little bit, and then we'll probably get into more later. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eric?
Thank you. So I'm one half of the company Hellman Chang, a high-end furniture company. Used to be based out of Brooklyn. You know, we had a lot of pride in that. We most recently, about a year ago, moved down to Dawsonville, Georgia, which is about an hour north of Atlanta. Started the company with my best friend since we were 10 years old, Dan Hellman. So we go way back. And really came into the industry from the outside. I studied finance and marketing. Dan studied classical guitar performance. And we were, you know, hanging out in New York after college, missing woodworking. We had taught ourselves started in Somerville High School and college, and decided that we could try to build this stuff in New York. And we rented a little co-op space in Brooklyn, way before Brooklyn was considered cool. Started going nights and weekends, found it to be a very expensive hobby. thought if we
Right.
could sell a couple of pieces, we could at least just finance this hobby. And one thing led to another. Designed a small collection, won a Best of Year award, got published. And our first client was the Four Seasons Hotel. And then our second client was Sex and the City, and then Gossip Girl. And then within about a year, we quit our day jobs and started building furniture full time. And so the most recent transition for the company, like I said, was moving down to Georgia. We found that, we had about 16,000 square feet in Brooklyn, and found that we really could no longer scale, and we were seeing diminishing returns in our growth, which was odd. And we found that it really just came down to space and space for work in progress. And in our long search for a new home, we settled on rural Georgia. But Lori, I'm a little jealous of your white box, your creative white box. The intent was that I would keep the customer service and design lab in Brooklyn while Dan was running the manufacturing operation in Georgia. But of course, COVID hit and we had to close down the Brooklyn office. And I just decided, it makes more sense to be down here at the factory. So yeah.
Well, that sort of leads me to some of the, discussion points. So definitely over the past year, you all have made a number of changes. And Eric, as you just said, so do you, from, moving from Brooklyn and moving down to Georgia, have you, do you, how does it look? How does the space and feel? You said that you're jealous of Lori. She's got her white box. Do you have a space for design? How is it separated? How does that sort of creative process work?
We weren't in Brooklyn for more than 6 weeks before we had to close things down, our design office. So we started to tap into it where, I could have blinders on and just focus with my design team and get really creative. Now that I'm back in the factory, that's kind of gone away. But the Brooklyn team works remotely. We do daily Zoom sessions, which has been an interesting adjustment. But, for us, the transition really was setting up this new factory. Brooklyn had its wonderful charm. It was accessible from the city. It really felt like what everyone says of Brooklyn, a studio is. And then moving into this larger factory, we now have around 32,000 square feet on 4 acres.
Like steroids.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of you.
It was actually an old Lowe's building, believe it or not. Now it's just this giant, big warehouse. And little things like having a flat, even concrete floor and not a rickety, old, sagging wood floor makes a huge difference in how we can just transport items and move items from location to location. So we call it Hellman Chang 2.0. And we're kind of hitting a hard reset with how we produce product, moving toward lean production and really finding value for our customer and eliminating waste. And in doing so, we can improve customer service, improve lead times, and become much more efficient, and really combine technology and hand craftsmanship to kind of expand what we're trying to do with design.
So Lori, for you, your design process is probably a little different than the manufacturing process per se. So I think, can you address a little bit for you this last year, how you as the head of the design and then the other components to your business, what kinds of things and challenges, was there anything really big that happened, during this time period to make you adjust or do something differently?
Well, one of the biggest things is I'm working with mills and artisans all over the world, and I'm used to traveling there and going to see them and work with them and touch them and spend time with them. And I haven't been able to do that. And that's been really hard and really sad. We've been able to make it work because we have such long relationships and we know each other, and we've been able to FedEx and Zoom and so forth, but it's not the same as being there and looking at a paper or a text and saying, well, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? So that's been probably my biggest challenge and also makes me sad. And hopefully that will change. But at this point, I'm not getting on a plane to go to Nepal right now. So on the flip side, I've noticed, and my family has noticed, that I'm much calmer and more relaxed, and I'm taking more time to do things that I normally wouldn't have time to do. And it's in work and personal. Personal, it's things like cooking. I would come home tired and not want to cook from a long day of work. But in work, it's things like projects that have been on sitting there that I've never had time to stab at. Or I wrote a book a few years ago and talked about writing another book for this all this time, but it's not until these last 6 months I've actually sat down and started writing it.
That's
So
exciting.
there's silver linings to it, and then there are challenges to it. But I will say that the industry is, at least from where I sit, is very alive and well, and that's really exciting. I find that people do even more so want to make their homes and their spaces beautiful and elevating them. And I think they're paying more attention to it now than they ever have before. So I'm looking at the positives.
That's good. No, I think it is a matter of, it's having perspective. And it seems like both of you have that ability to be, you know, flexible, nimble, assessing, making the most of a situation. I think, Lori, from the textile and the product, and also from the furniture standpoint, you know, people definitely, you know, the designers that I know in the industry definitely feel that they need to touch and see the product. You know, you can do certain things on Zoom, but other things, no, you cannot. You can't do. You can't miss that human touch and the human eye, and then the human experience. I'm sure that, you know, Eric, you find that when it comes to chairs and sofas, I'm always hearing designers say, you know what, we need to sit in it. We need to know how that particular product sort of feels. So, you know, since, you know, you run and own your own businesses both, where do you spend your time? Like, how much do you know, if you talk about your job description and time management, let's talk a little bit about where you're spending your time and if that's changed a little bit. And as you know, I hear you say, Lori, yeah, absolutely. That's probably the nicest thing that people say is they do on one hand have more time because they can't be going to, in our industry, all of the events. They can't be running on the planes to be visiting the showrooms or visiting the factories. So you do get a little bit of your time back. But as you're talking about, let's talk a little bit about how you use that, and, you know, give some insight to people who are running their own businesses. You know, how much are you spent doing the designing part? How much, you know, are you spent the old E-Myth, you know, in the business and on the business? Where do you find, you know, your energy's being spent?
I can start and just say that I'm lucky in that I have a design studio that's a few blocks from my home. So every day I get up, I get dressed, and I walk to it. I don't always put on makeup and blow dry my hair, but I come and I create here. And sometimes I have some of my team here and sometimes I don't. But I'm always here creating because it's during this period, very healing for me. Focusing not on politics, focusing not on COVID so much. I mean, we have to be aware of all these things. I kind of disappear into this world of creativity. And that's why, Eric, I'm not sure this works as well for you. That's why I really embrace the separation of where we create and where all the business side happens. So I only get involved in the business side when I need to. Like, we have a meeting every other week, an executive meeting where we share with each other what's happening in operations, what's happening in this, and that's with my partners at Pollock. So other than those times, I'm really in a very creative bubble.
Eric, what's it like for you? Tell me.
Well,
and you have a partner.
Yes,
so that's different too than Lori, because Lori, you don't have a partner, correct?
I would say Pollock,
except for the Pollock part.
On the fabric and wall covering, but they are very much just basically doing all the things that I don't want to do.
Oh, aren't you lucky? Okay. Does that happen to you, Eric? Let's hear.
Yes, I have a partner, which is extremely helpful. And I would never tell anyone to work with family or friends. It's just not a good idea. But the reason we work is because we are polar opposites. We're very yin and yang. So the things that I don't excel at, he does, and vice versa. So we're able to prop each other up, and together we share the same vision. We can move forward together, and it works out really well as a partnership. You're never stepping each other's toes in that respect. But with respect to time, again, I'm jealous of Lori. I tell people that, you know, if you want to have your own business, whether it's running a restaurant, cooking, or designing furniture, and really dig into something you're passionate about, you have to be equally passionate about doing business as you are with, like I said, building furniture, designing furniture, you know, cooking a wonderful meal. Because as this company grows, you know, Dan and I are spending 99% of our time kind of keeping the machine moving, running the business, just so that we can have that 1% of time to just dive in creatively and, maybe go in the back and produce a new prototype together. And that's the kind of challenging balance that you have to create. And I think as we grew the company, one of the biggest difficulties for me was actually moving from, a head designer to more of a creative director role, and bringing in a team of designers with me to expand our collection and expand our horizons, and kind of look at it from 1,000-foot level versus, and then you can kind of get into the details with them. But it was a really difficult transition, but at the same time, it was extremely liberating. It allowed us to do multiple things at the same time. I could direct, 10 to 15 pieces at once. So that's kind of been the transition for us, and how I balance my time. And to Lori's comment about not being able to travel, if anyone has known me, I'm constantly traveling. I'm going to all the various markets. I am constantly meeting with clients and designers, because that's a really important part of what we do. The design industry is all about collaboration, and to be designing just in a vacuum really doesn't lead to good innovation. So for us, it's been about understanding our clients' projects and having them understand our level of customization to kind of tweak and create new products and new categories.
So I think, what I'm hearing you saying is, definitely being a business owner, and I think it's a combination, and it's not COVID related. These are business things. You're running a company, and I think that old saying is, once you're in your company for a while, you realize it's 1% creativity and 99% follow through, right? So, and it's that balance, and the idea that you have perspective, Eric, and having a partner who is opposite, and that you can sort of share that role. Do you find that you're utilizing more of your schooling, the business side, as much as the creative side at this point? And
I think that was probably, I went through that maybe 10 years ago when we entered the business. Now we're just kind of learning as we go. I do definitely think that, again, coming in from the outside actually gave us a bit of an advantage. Coming from the finance and marketing background, and then going into the trade design industry, we saw a lot of faults in the industry, quite frankly. The lack of branding, the lack of marketing in general, the opacity of the industry. And we were able to kind of poke holes in those weaknesses to our advantage to kind of grow the brand at a much faster pace. So that's kind of where that benefit came in terms of the business background. And then from the creative side of things, I think just not being maybe classically trained and just having a slightly different outlook when it came to design.
So
refreshing, yeah.
When it comes to design, a lot of times they say that that designers are truly problem solvers. Would you say that's the case, Lori? Or how from you're I look at you as being a sort of creative genius. You're a true creator, because your sensibility crosses many spectrums, from fabrics and wallpaper to jewelry to books. So I think I'd like to get a little bit, in your head, so to speak, to sort of understand that, because I think that people, and you're also running a business. So I think that there's that, yin yang, there's two parts. So could you address that a little bit?
Well, just to address the last part you said about running the business, I'd like to say is, because I'm guessing a lot of the attendees are interior designers who are creative, but also running their businesses. And it's really hard, I think. It's two different hats. And I have struggled with it my entire career. And so there are a few things that I've done. I mean, first of all, I started my wall covering, gosh, Eric, I could have used you. When I started my wall covering company, I created a business plan that was actually wrong. Like, I based my average order on fabric, which is between 8 and 12 yards, when I should have based it on the average wall covering order, which is between 30 and 40 yards. So my entire inventory was messed up. Like, I made so many mistakes. And what I learned is I need to get help. I need to know where I'm weak and find that support outside, whether it's hiring someone or a mentor who's in business, which I luckily had my cousin, like, but just people like know what you don't know and ask for help and get help. So that was one thing I learned on the business side. And then in addition to that, I even went as far with my wall covering company is to merge with Pollock, which was a company, amazing fabric company that had been in existence for so many years and had the best reputation for operations. I wanted, I was struggling. So it was also giving up, being willing to give up parts of the job that weren't really working. So from that standpoint, I think that we can't always do everything well. And to know that gives us the best chance for success.
Yeah.
And then as far as design goes, I don't know. I just like to design lots of things. Some people say, like, how come you didn't just specialize in textile? Why did you start doing all these other things? And I don't know. I can't help it. I just like doing it all.
It just sort of comes and feeds you. Yeah. I think the other thing I know from running myself, just running a business, and my father-in-law, who's 91, who just was like forced off his last board, he always said to me, he said, do what you do best. And when you can afford it, you hire the rest. And I always still, it really makes sense because most people are not good at all things, and I think in running a business perspective, it is sort of feeding, what feeds you is your passion, right? And when you say that, Eric, that it's the passion that gets you up and gets you going, and whether it's creating a collection or what it is. And then as your business is growing, you have to adapt to the different kinds of people that you're going to need, Lori. And sort of, I think what I'm hearing you both say is you have to be in tune with your business and where it is. And you have to be open to listening to make those adjustments to, the factory is not working where we are in Brooklyn. We need, we've got a problem. How are we going to solve this? And I think that's a lot of what business owners are. And you don't think about that. You're constantly solving problems and you're checking back and forth. So,
and there's this thing, that old adage where they say, like, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And you have to be really careful when you're in a business on your own and you don't have anybody to sort of giving you input. You can do that. And all of a sudden you just have been doing the same thing and it's not working. And so being able, the nimble, that word is a really good word, especially now, really good.
So let's talk a little bit, we're talking a little bit about creativity and business together. So Eric, let's talk a little bit about sort of what inspires you, what motivates you, what gets yours as you're going?
Well, I mean, for me, I've never, again, been able to really describe, our company aesthetic too well, because it means different things to different people. But inspiration for me comes from the people that I meet. Like I said before, design really is a collaboration, and our line grows organically because we work with, the top interior designers in the world who can see a console and say, you know what, I would love to see that as a dining table, or can you do this table, or and it's amazing how the line evolves because of that collaboration. And that's really what drives me. Before COVID, I was probably on a plane, 6 times a month, meeting with clients and just explaining what our capabilities are and how that could lead to an amazing partnership on an amazing project. And then to see our pieces come out of the wood shop, it's so interesting. We're not snooty about our designs. We love the feedback. We love to customize. So to see how designers are reinterpreting the collection is really inspiring to me, personally. So I always encourage that. Our brand is highly accessible to designers. Dan and myself make ourselves very accessible and very personal. I mean, probably, 100 designers out there have our personal cell phone numbers out there to reach out to us. So to us, it's about the people. And one of the beautiful things about this industry, it is so small and it is so heavily concentrated with an amazing pool of talented creatives.
Yeah, I think that's, to your point, Eric, that's a really good point. I think that people in other industries don't have that sort of camaraderie and friendly competition, as we were just talking about the showrooms where you are and the sort of support system, having somebody like the Sutherlands who are really sort of mentors behind you and there to push and to help and getting feedback. I think that's the other thing I've heard both of you say, how important feedback is today to doing your businesses and to understanding those client relationships, and that tweaks can be made. So Eric, is your collection, and hearing you talk about the collaboration with designers and whatnot, is there like semi-custom capabilities and things like that? So, if designers see something that's on the line and they want it adjusted.
Yeah. We started the collection with the Z pedestal. That's what we got the award for. And the first order was a customization. It was the Four Seasons saying, please turn this into a bar table. We need 15 for the hotel restaurant. And the city came and said, we love this. Can you turn it into bedside tables for Carrie and Big's bedroom? And so that is that kind of natural evolution. So one pedestal table became a line, I think, of like 12 or 13 pieces. So yeah, the high level of customization is there. But with our own spin on it to kind of make sure our design voice is still heard within it.
So Lori, okay. And you say you design many different things. So I'm starting here, and as I'm looking through the images and whatnot, I'm like, wait a second. So how many different collections do you design, and do you do them seasons, yearly? So just give us a little sort of snapshot, because you've got textile.
My main thing is Weitzner, and that's fabric and wall covering. And that's sold around the world through showrooms to the trade. And we do 2 collections a year, spring and fall, although now with COVID, we've been thinking about capsule collections, smaller, more often.
Okay.
The passementerie, I have a very proudly long, almost 15-year relationship with Sam & Sons doing trim and passementerie, which is really jewelry for the home. And that kind of took me in a whole other direction, which led me to actual jewelry. And I love that. Then I do rugs. I did a lovely rug line for Perennials, who we were just saying is a terrific company to work with, all outdoor performance. But what they wanted me for is to help really move it forward in terms of construction, so that these rugs don't look and feel like performance at all. And then these other side things like papyrus cards, it's always an extension of my textile background. Everything I do rooted in textile, embroidery, beading, stitching, quilting, pleating. Everything you see, even Artistic Tile, which is my most recent license, and I've loved working with them. We created hard stone, but it looks like textile. So that's sort of where it all kind of stems from.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, when you look at your products, and as everyone who's here is looking at both of the collections and the process that they've put together on the slideshows, you can really see, to me, wearing my marketing hat, they're both very strong. Both the brands have a strong DNA, and it comes across. Like, you look at every image and you're like, yeah, now that I know that, the look, the feeling, the design of a Hellman Chang piece of furniture, you can see there's innate qualities that just appear to it. And I think the same thing holds true for you, Lori, is that when you look at the different collections and things, you can see your eye or hand once people get to know what's behind you. And so, as you said, you both don't work alone. So let's talk a little bit about the people within the teams that you have and how you're working with your teams now. And let's talk a little bit about what the good things are that you've learned, so we can share with the audience some of the things that are working really well with working with your teams. And what are the things that you found like, oh God, this is just awful, and I just can't wait to get back to X, Y, and Z. So go ahead. Whoever wants to go first. You're both laughing, so go ahead. It doesn't matter.
I was just thinking about the things that aren't working at all, which is mostly like my daughter studying remotely. But anyway, I think that we all adapt. I have a team, and they're really creative, and I really was worried that working remotely wasn't going to work. But in the beginning, everyone was working remotely except for me. They were not comfortable coming in, which I understood. And I was surprised pleasantly. They were terrific, and doing artwork, because we do artwork in our studio. We're like drawing, we're painting, we're getting messy, and they were doing that from home. Is it ideal? No. Now we've changed it. We have a hybrid situation. They come in 3 days a week, and 2 days they're working from home. And And I'm learning that can also work. So there have been some adaptations. The thing that I miss the most, and I think that really can't be replaced, is what you said before, Beth, about we need, especially in textile. Eric, I'm not sure if it's the same in furniture. I mean, your furniture photography is gorgeous, and I know there's nothing like the real thing.
Right.
I can look at your pictures and know that will work in my home. I'm not sure the same can be said for fabric or wall covering or passementerie. I feel like you really need you need to touch it, to feel it, and to see it in your space. So that's been challenging because designers are not all ready for our reps to come visit, and they are hopefully ready now to come visit ADAC because it's safe COVID-wise, but there has been a reluctance up until recently, and that's been challenging because they need to experience these things in person.
Yeah, definitely. Eric, how have you found it that way with your teams?
Yeah, you know, in this kind of 2.0 setup, we really start to expand and hire specialized personnel. Whereas before in Brooklyn, we really had a team of master craftsmen. I mean, Dan and I were actually the youngest people in our company. We had people that were, 5 to 15 years older than us that have been woodworking for years, and they had their own woodworking benches, working on their own projects, start to finish. And while that had a sense of charm and wonderment, it wasn't efficient. It was extremely costly, and it led to a lot of variability and inconsistencies. And so setting up this new factory, we hired for the first time a full-time engineer, a full-time CNC operator, full-time programmer. And what that has allowed us to do is really kind of standardize things really well, become more efficient, and be able to produce a lot more product in a more consistent manner. The challenge with that is having a full-time engineer, having a CNC operator, having a CNC programmer, and having different craftsmen with different skill sets, and trying to, in your new company, make them gel together with a strong corporate culture. And you're spending a lot of energy, honestly, almost kind of directing a ship and making sure that everyone is more on the same page with standard operating procedures. Versus the kind of micromanagement of how people are, how are you building this and how are you building that? So it's a very different outlook from a managerial perspective, I think, but absolutely necessary if you're going to grow and scale your business and provide better service to your clients.
Yeah, I think, what I'm hearing you saying is that it's definitely, it's all about the people.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably in it. There's financial investments and then there's other investments. And the thing I've started to really hear people saying definitely is, in these, especially in times like this, when you're not all together, the more that you invest in your people and knowing about your people and how they live, work, and all of those things, the more from a business side, you can understand how to work with them, how to motivate them, how to understand them so that you can get the best from everyone. And I think that especially, in companies that, such as yourself, Eric, that are growing, it's looking at things with a, as we said from the beginning, with a new lens. You have to sort of say, this is the way it is today. Here we are in these hybrid models. Here we are, hopefully the manufacturing and everyone stays safe and whatnot, and the creative process. And then if something changes, we have to adapt. And what is that adaptation going to look like? And how can we, from a design perspective, manufacturing, marketing, and all those things. So, from not just talk a little bit about the lessons you've learned, but really from an investment standpoint. I hear, which I think is, Eric, is refreshing, that you are absolutely investing in the people and the technology and marketing, all of that. And Lori, from your business, you've invested in the diversity and the support of all of the components that make the Lori Weitzner design brand as a brand today, which I think is really from, coming from a textile perspective and then growing it as a huge business. I think, there's a lot that you've been able to do, and you've got that brand consistency. So talk a little bit about what you've learned, both, if you could share with the audience, that would be great.
Beth, you summed it up. It's and Eric, it's relationships. First and foremost, I would be nothing and nowhere without the relationships I've built. And if there's one other positive I could say about COVID, is that it's reminded us of how important relationships are, and knowing who is that person and what is their challenges in life and how can we work together that's beneficial for both of us. And it's not just like, you know, these Zooms, in a way, as remote as they are, we're probably connecting more than we were before in some ways, not physically, but so I have to credit the success that I've had, probably equal creative. I would say even maybe it's 40-60, like 40 is about the creativity and 60 is about the people that all along the way. And that includes the artisans in the middle of nowhere who I just worked with forever, who were committed to making it work in a way to bring a product that you would otherwise never have or see here, and do it well and do it right so that our interior designers can depend on it yearly, every year. You know, it's that, to the people at Pollock in operations and customer service who get the product out there and get the samples out there in a timely way. It's all of that. And you know what else I've noticed, is the last thing I'll say, is we have more time now to be a little bit kinder and more polite. I now, like, every email I'm asking how they're doing. I didn't do that before COVID. And I think and I really do mean it. I'm not just saying it. I want to know how everyone's doing. And I think that has made us all a bit nicer. Mm-hmm. And when you're kind, you want to do better work.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Eric, can you share a little bit about the kinds of things and, you know, what you've adapted and invested into besides?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, absolutely right about people, especially during this time. It really highlights how important they are to you. And if you are taking care of others, you know, during this difficult time, you know, you'll see that return in spades for sure. So, you know, Dana and I have definitely doubled down on the people and the personnel for sure. And also, you know, in thinking about investment, you know, technology is an obvious one, you know, based on the fact that people aren't able to get out there more often. So investing in technology tools that can recreate or enhance the experience that we're now missing out on, and the kind of day-to-day and person-to-person interaction that we have. But also reinvesting in, you know, some of the physical touch points too. If designers aren't able to get into showrooms more or bring their clients into showrooms more, then we have to do what we can to bring it to them. So, you know, we're right now printing a brand new, you know, 150-page comprehensive lookbook that we'll distribute out to all of our top clients, where people are probably completely zoomed out. I found the next best thing is to actually write a handwritten note on company stationery and mail it in the mail. You know, people don't see that often. Like, it's perfect timing, the papyrus, beautiful little envelope and letter there that Lori designed. We've also, with respect back to technology, you know, the new iPhone and iPads that are coming out will have improved technology on 3D depth perception, and that will help us in currently implementing a new AR model. So we're scanning in furniture and then allowing our designers to actually give a link to their end client where they can drop a piece of Hellman Chang furniture into their home, into the space, and walk around it and get up and close personal with it. So that should be introduced sometime next year. And with that, we can also introduce a virtual showroom that clients and designers can walk through. And because it is virtual, we can swap it out on the fly. We can change it every week if we want to. So those are some technology things that we're going to start investing in, that we're working on currently, that we hope to see within the next quarter or two.
Wow, that's quite impressive, Aaron. I think that's very like the things I hear you saying is that, and you know, it appears to me is you're incredibly forward thinking. You know, you're trying to be 2 steps ahead of where your business is and saying, okay, what I'm hearing is a little bit about the customer experience and about the experience that the designers are going through and listening. And like Lori said, you know, her people need to touch and feel the things, you know, your people want to surround themselves in a space. So investing in that kind of 3D technology, which is really is a big thing. And I think that's probably, and I'm not sure how the designers in the audience, I think that that education process is going to be really key, because if you have been a designer doing things a certain way, I think adjusting and learning those skill sets are going to be something that's going to be important. So how they learn to integrate technology into what they're doing, I think is also going to be key. You know, your point is the consumer. I hear you talk about the consumer. So I think that, you know, you're also looking not just at the designer by any means, you're looking at the end user and what their experience and their needs are.
Right.
So I think that that's something, you know, for everybody to keep in mind, because we're all changing. And as we talked about, you know, we've all got this little bit of Zoom fatigue, but you know, to your point, Lori, we're present here. We're having a real conversation. We're trying to get the three of us, you know, Eric's in California, I'm in Connecticut, Lori's in New York, and the three of us to get together to do a meeting. You know, we'd be weeks before that, but when we're here and we're present. And so I think that there's those opportunities for engagement. And, you know,
well, you know, the industry has been dealing with something for the last 10 to 15 years that I think COVID has kind of fast tracked and really highlighted and brought to the surface in a way that we can no longer ignore. And it's, you know, the internet has disrupted every single industry. We're kind of like one of the last frontiers, right? And what the internet does is it empowers consumers. And so we're talking about this conversation about consumers. Well, you know, we're a B2B industry. Why is consumers' preferences so relevant? But you know, with consumer empowerment, it really kind of peels back the opacity of our industry. And we are at a point where we can either decide that we find a way to open it up and let consumers engage and experience more with the industry, or continue to do things the way that we have been and kind of be at a point where we could lose them, you know, and other industries can take advantage of that opportunity. So, you know, I've always said there's three things, the three E's, experience and expertise and education are extremely important, and ease is another big thing. So now we have to make things easy for our customers and for the end clients. We have to make information accessible to them, and we have to create a better experience for them, and we have to educate them with our expertise. So I think where our industry was kind of led by designers who said, well, you know, you can't access this product, you have to go through me. It's really commoditized the entire industry in a sense. And we have a million brands that have yet to kind of tell their story. And now we have the internet to help us tell those stories. So every stakeholder has a very important responsibility to become more consumer facing and engage and give our customers a better experience, and we can really kind of blow the industry wide open.
Lori, how are you keeping yourself? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to add to that, I agree. Like when I was growing up, you know, my mom would hire an interior designer for access because otherwise you couldn't have access. But now you can have access. We need designers desperately for their talent. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you are talking about with all this great augmented reality and technology is these are tools that we can provide our clients so that they can have an easier time expressing their talents to their end user.
Right. Yeah. No, and it's valid. I think the point that I'm hearing come across too is for the industry to be valued and to have the value, Lori, to what you're saying, right? So
and I don't think they do. I mean, with all due respect, they could do a better job right now more than ever. We need our interior designers to step up and do these beautiful spaces for people. We need it. We need that. Right. The same way we need a dentist for our, you know, cavity.
Yeah. You need the professionals. And I think that's probably, so, you know, the idea of communicating and the visibility of your brand and the visibility of the designer and the designer's role for the homeowner. And as we talked about in the very beginning, people are in their homes more and they're going to continue to be, and the market's going to adapt and shift. But I think it's that part of creating that communication out there so that the end user consumer understands all of the players and the roles of what they have in the marketplace. So I think definitely, you know, the idea of talking a little teeny bit about the marketing and the visibility and keeping yourself visible. So, and to Eric's point of the communication to the end consumer, because today we have an educated since, we've got an educated consumer out there. And so they want to know the name. They want to know the Weitzner name out there, and they want to know what the brand stands for. So that the idea that the technology and your investment. So, and they now going to need to know what the designer's role is. And I think that the idea is, it is going to become, a more open and fluid sorts of discussions and relationships, and that the more that the design industry is valued and that they're being paid for their talent and not just for the product they're bringing to somebody. I think that's probably been the big disconnect that I've seen in the years I've been in the industry is, there's always going to be that person who's going to want to be the shopper. Well, that's really, even if you are a shopper, you're not the one putting the rest of the space or value in that. So I think that, the designer probably, as you said, Lori, has a more important role, but that role, like all of ours that we're talking about, we're talking from the design and manufacturing process, but the designer's role is going to definitely change because you've got new consumers out there who are shopping and buying things in a different way, right? So you've got your...
One example of an interior designer, very, very talented high-end designer who toured a home. It was a $20+ million home, and the owner thought they could furnish it themselves from a catalog, and a big retailer, and they did it, and they just did it because they thought they could. It wasn't a money issue, and they did it. After they did, they thought, oh my God, this isn't right, and then they had to call in the interior designer to come and kind of do their magic. And right. I think that is a danger. And that's why I'm always saying to our interior designer audience, please make yourselves as accessible as you can and show why you are so important.
Yeah. So let's see what else I have here on my last thing before we get to our little Q&A. We have some questions here. Have you had any aha moments in this last year that you want to share with people, good or bad, that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, one thing for me, I've been thinking a lot about the difference, and I think I mentioned, Beth, this to you the other day on the phone. The difference between what does success mean, professional success versus authentic success. And it just was an aha moment for me during COVID, because authentic success is when you're doing what feels great and what you want to be doing versus success because of maybe other things. Right. That was I don't know if I'm explaining well enough, but that was an aha moment for me.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's being true to yourself.
Yeah. Aligning with what feels right as opposed to, I'm just going to do this because this will be a big seller, or.
Well, you're on the machine. I think that was one of the things I've heard you all say is that you've gotten a little bit of a step aside to look, at your business and your life. And I think that was the one thing that people didn't do before. They only looked at their business. If you're in business, you looked at business and life. And now it seems that people are looking a little bit more intertwined together, how they're working together. Eric, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the people topic. We've always cared for and really loved our employees, but when in COVID, when you're talking about life and death, and you're talking about, financial ruin around the horizon. I mean, we all went through it. No one had any idea what was going to happen. And when the focus was, the most important thing is to try to make sure everybody is okay. And that kind of guides every decision from there. You don't just think about your strictly from a business side. You start thinking about the people side. We found that works, that will pay off, that will help you, and that will keep your team loyal, and it'll make them work harder, and it will keep you inspired, and just think about your business and your team differently.
Okay, thank you guys. I have a couple questions that we've gotten from the audience. Let's see. What was the best business advice someone's given you?
I can say what that is. It is go for what you want, not what you think is possible.
Go for what you want.
I don't know if it was advice. So in college, had helped start a marketing agency, digital marketing agency. That was very successful. Started our junior year of college, and I did that for 4 years. And in our senior year, we were ranked the 56th fastest growing company in the U.S. by Entrepreneur Magazine. And I was doing
Wow.
on nights and weekends for fun. And 4.5 years into this marketing business, I told my other business partner I was going to leave and I wanted to build furniture full time. And, they fought tooth and nail to not make me go. And ultimately, the last discussion I had was with one of them. They said, look, man, we don't want to see you go because we don't want to see you fail. And I don't think I even responded to that. And I was like, all right. And that was it. And I walked out the door, and it was a kind of that burning motivation, to prove them wrong. That really kind of fueled me in those early years when, I didn't pay myself for, 4.5 years after that, or 2.5 years. The recession hit, but there was just this kind of fire, to prove yourself. So
You stay in touch with them?
some of them, not that one.
Not that one. So you're not trend forecasters, but you have your own businesses. And so this question is, where do you see design going in 2021 with the digital world? Because there's no trade show, like from what, it looks like this is coming from somebody regarding, we don't have trade shows and we don't have those kinds of things happening in the same way for next year as of right now, at least the first half of the year.
So I think, new product introductions, correct. It'll be mostly all digital. Social media is an incredibly powerful tool. I found that during COVID, in the quiet times when we were quarantining, I was just on social media constantly and trying to reconnect and connect with new designers. I saw that pay off. 3-4 months later, I saw purchase orders come in from showrooms with these designers that I was communicating with, on Instagram. So I think that, yes, technology-wise we're going to have to find new and more effective ways to get new product out there, and to yet still remain tactile. So we have actually made larger, thicker sample chips that we can send out so you can really see a larger swath and understand the quality a little bit more about what the furniture is. I think that's going to be extremely effective. The augmented reality that I was discussing, I think is going to be really, really helpful when end clients and designers are unable to get into showrooms. That'll be really helpful. But from an aesthetic standpoint, I think that, things will get kind of softer, I want to say, more livable, but still, how do you find that balance of that soft coziness, but still sophisticated and refined? And that's kind of the direction that I've been seeing at least, comes to like an aesthetic design. But what do you see, Lori?
Definitely things warming up in terms of color, excuse me, and warming up in terms of line, organic, a little bit more organic, softer, more evoking a sense of calm and security, and tactile is really, really important. And all of that can be done in a beautifully sophisticated way. I also, just to touch upon color for a moment, greens, lots of greens, all kinds of greens. People need to feel more rooted in nature, more than ever before. They're not getting out. We're on the Zoom all the time. So you're going to see a lot more greens and warmer tones. And those greens can be anything from the darker moss greens to the khakis and lighter neutrals and stuff. So that's just a little bit of
No. I think it's important. We need to get people excited because we have to get up every day and, we have to do what we do. So
I wore this teal for you, Lori.
Sorry?
I wore this teal for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants more blue.
They're beautiful smoky blues. And by the way, those pictures of you, are you really wearing those beautiful suits all the time when you're in the factory like that?
The dress code at our work.
You do have a dress code.
I mean, yeah, I do quite often, wear a suit or at least a jacket to work.
Beautiful.
Always love to do. That was our national ad campaign. So it's the only ad campaign for furniture that doesn't really show furniture.
Right.
But it was kind of, we were encapsulating the brand into one photograph, which was Dan and I, building furniture how we used to with each other and by hand. and doing it in this dusty old wood shop, but it had the contrast with these refined bespoke suits that actually Canali sponsored and provided, which was great. So you could understand the passion and the process, but know that you were getting something refined and sophisticated at the end.
I love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
he's been a disruptor way before people talked about being disruptors. So, you know, I think you need to bring a different perspective. So, yeah, I think this has been great. It's been incredibly informative to me. Get to meet new people too. And I want to thank ADAC again for getting down to business and giving us these opportunities, and to have Made Goods and Cravat and Jim Thompson and all the other showrooms, so that when people right now, while we're still open and we haven't gone back, you should get out if you're feeling safe and get into the showrooms and touch and feel the products, as both Lori and Eric said, and they're both available, and you can connect with them if you have any personal questions and whatnot about their businesses and whatnot. So they're happy to work with you, and we want you to just shop, 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 and be safe. So thanks all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.